Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final session of the day. The last warm-up back support act before we head for the after party. So I hope you're all looking forward to that. But first, we have the wonderful Ruth Dale here, who is the founder of Social Insight, a behavioral change marketing consultancy that offers two things. First thing is a deep dive into your audience so you can increase impact, conversion, and achieve change. And the second thing is behavioral change marketing bootcamp training. So today, Ruth is going to take us through a murder mystery meets behavior change marketing. Case 202, the mystery of the murdered comms hero. So hope you're all looking forward to this as much as I am. It's very intriguing. It's a different way of looking at things and learning. So can't wait to hear it, Ruth. So take it away. And I'll be back at the end for some Q&A. So make sure if you've got any questions, you post them in the Q&A tab at the right-hand side. Good luck.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lee. And hello, everyone. This is my first commsHERO, so I'm really chuffed to be here. And it's been a great day. And I was just saying to Lee that we started off this morning's session with talking about System 1. The session was talking about connecting with your audience. So we're starting and ending the day on behavioural science, really, which is absolutely fantastic. And as Lee just said, I'll just introduce myself because it kind of explains where this has all come from. And I started off in communications in some of the big corporates, EMAP and Capita, before I went into the NHS. And then 20 years later, I was still kicking around the system across local government, central government and NHS, and doing communications and marketing. And about 10 years in, I got moved into public health when the government decides to change the whole system up again, as I'm sure some of you will know. You get moved around a bit. So it was in public health I discovered behavioural science. And I've been in comms a long time, and I just couldn't believe it. It blew my mind how helpful it was, how easy it made things, how much stress it took out, but also brilliantly how it enabled me to manage upwards. As anyone knows, and as has been discussed today, absolutely managing upwards and managing senior management expectations is just huge for comms. So I was like, this is brilliant. But also what I've heard a lot of today is actually just how much comms professionals have had to do as comms heroes over the last couple of years, have had it really tough, let alone the fact we're in a sort of 24/7 always on culture. The amount of sort of cultural changes and pressures, domestic and work, have just been huge. And so we ran a behavioural science survey with comms guys, just saying, what is your one biggest challenge? And, you know, in applying behavioural science, and, you know, what's stopping you? And what came back with two really key things was, one, understanding what behavioural science is, because obviously it has just been so busy, even keeping up with the sort of digital tech developments, the latest software, let alone having time to do your insight and your development, let alone having headspace to get creative and humorous and things. And then there's this behavioural science field that explodes, and you're expected to stay on top of that as well and know everything that's happening and understand which bit of science is relevant for you. So keeping up with what you're expected to know and just keeping pace with behavioural scientists was one thing. But the other thing was, of course, time. Time is just the biggest challenge ever. So I set up Behaviour Change Marketing Bootcamp in order to solve both those challenges. And it's basically what I wish I had had when I was in-house, because actually there's some real core concepts that you can just take and run with in behavioural science, but also there's some, you know, really key points and challenges that you can actually use to your advantage, because as we all know, that if you are hoping to change a behaviour, then you will actually be hoping to solve a problem for someone. So loads of opportunities once you understand the sort of key concepts. And I'm going to share with you today one of them, and we're going to do it via murder mystery style. But actually, just pause that again. Can we even talk about behavioral science without mentioning panic buying? So I'm not going to ask anyone if they went out and bought any petrol, or if anyone has seen the Tesco's panic headlines. As a marketer, I'm pretty sure it could be Tesco's trying to get us all to panic buy and shop early in the hope we'll do our panic buying at the end as well. But yeah, so panic buying is wonderful. It's not wonderful in the sense it's not a great thing to happen, because it means we're kind of tense, stressed and anxious and worried. But it is a good example of how powerful our words are. And as communicators, we know this already. But to actually see how words can trigger behaviours and actually affect a behaviour change is incredible. And so I thought, just before I get into the presentation, just to a few things for you guys, in case you weren't aware, that the 3 behavioural biases that really are underpinning a behavioural panic buying, according to the behavioural scientists, is the scarcity, is a very human tendency to value something more when there's less of it. And we know this, marketing's been using that forever, limited editions and all sorts. And loss aversion, of course, as we worry, we don't want to lose things. We want it more if we think we're going to lose it. And of course, social norms. It is a very basic instinct. We need to be part of the herd. And actually, negative social norms will drive our behavior even more, which I know any parents out there will probably agree. You tell your child not to do something and they'll want to do it even more. And so it is scientifically proven that negative social norms will actually trigger and point people towards the exact behavior you don't want to do. And I think it was Hal Reynolds' fantastic tweet, the TikTok guy. That was just, I was on the floor. I loved it. So I did watch your session and I thought, actually, I do laugh out loud when I see your stuff. It's brilliant. Well, the weird guy, he's just winking the whole time. So yeah, brilliant example of using humor. But it's just really important to show the power of our words, and actually behavioral biases, we're not immune to them. Sorry, no one is immune to them. We all have them. It's not something we can really stop. So understanding how to use them is really important. And of course, marketing has been doing this for decades, for good or for bad. So a lot of what we'll cover today, hopefully it will just be a trigger for you. But yeah, I know that. Okay, that makes sense. And you'll understand a little bit more about the why. So I'm going to do the techie bit. Let's just see. Share screen. Okay. Just bear with me. Sorry, when I practiced it, for some reason I managed to do that as the first time as well. Brilliant. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the case of the mysterious case of the murdered comms hero. So welcome, new detectives. As it's the end of the day, and I know you're all secretly wanting to order your takeaways and get your wine in the fridge, but just could you pop in the chat, who is your favorite detective and what are their characteristics? What is it you like about them? So Kate says Sherlock Holmes. Oh, I love that, actually, Kate. Panic buying gin. Yes, I would. Sherlock Holmes. And Kate, why do you like Sherlock Holmes? What's the characteristics? What sort of behaviours does he display? Just another thing, yes. Clever, funny. Have we got any more detectives out there? I actually came up with the idea of doing this when I binge watched Death in Paradise. Yes, Columbo. Oh, okay. So a good detective will, just one more thing, ask that one more question. It was in a session either today or yesterday, it's all merging, but we were talking about how comms people are. We tend to be the ones that go, but why? But why? Are you sure? Trying to really understand the concept. And it can be quite difficult. And sometimes you can feel like, oh, am I being difficult? And I'm asking that one more question. But actually, it's what a good detective does. So also start with what we've got. So a good detective will look at the crime scene and look at the facts, just like a good comms person will gather the data, gather the analytics together. Oh, I keep moving the mouse. Listening, but looking, because suspects lie. People lie. In behavioural science, it's great fun, and in boot camp we do this. We look at why people lie in the sense of we have all these behavioural biases that we're pretty much unaware of. In case you didn't know, our behaviours are made up of our habits. 43% of our behaviour is made up of our habits, and the majority of habits we're completely unaware of. So listening and looking at what people are doing is really important. Hearing what people think they're doing, and anyone who runs focus groups knows what I'm talking about there. Chunking down. So in behavioural science, behaviour change marketing, when we apply behavioural science, we really like to chunk down. What's the pathway? What's the next step? What are we expecting people to do to achieve the behaviour that we're hoping for? Just like a user journey, or when you're, designing your campaign, they go from social to, web to phone call, whatever it is. But just to really chunk it down through actually the audience's eyes. Oh, so they, when we were, looking at when you're smoking outdoors, people actually have to open and push a door to walk out through the door. Really chunking it down to see if what people are doing. And then a good detective, and you're all now detectives, will do that too. And you'll ask around, you'll go door to door. You won't just take one person's word for it. That's your stakeholders. We have to go around and check. We've got all the different stakeholder perspectives, especially if you're in public sector, most definitely. And I've mentioned that, ask the obvious questions, never assume anything. And that's a real tough one, because actually a lot of meetings, committee style meetings, everyone normally is assuming everything. And the one biggest thing we find in behaviour change marketing, which is why we're big advocates of personas, is that people normally are making lots of different assumptions about your audience. So when you're talking and planning your marketing, often you're not even talking about the same thing. And you don't actually know that until you kind of work through and find out what the assumptions are. But a good detective will, of course, never assume anything and see beyond the surface and develop a profile. So they'll have profile of the killers. FBI, they have whole centres on this now. This whole crime series on profiles. And I am a persona girl, and I know they're love or hate, a bit marmitey, but I love them. Basically because of lots and lots of years in public sector, keep running up to barriers and barriers, only to find out afterwards, actually, we did agree, but it was the way we were talking, or the misunderstanding, or just thinking about people in a different way. So to do that work up front, it just gives you a clear runway. So these are the case notes of the mysterious case of the murdered comms detective. Okay, so get your pen and paper out. As new detectives, you'll be expected to solve this crime. It's a beautiful morning at Colonel Mustard's mansion. It's the first face-to-face comms hero, a face-to-face event. How wonderful. And the Dunkin' Donuts have arrived. Mrs. White is also there when she finds a Mr. Lee Hurd dead on the floor in the library next to a candlestick. And round the corner is Miss Scarlett. So your job, you have 3 suspects, is to find the means, the motive, and the opportunity. Who killed Lee? And I said earlier, didn't I, Lee? I said, oh, you wait. So, who killed Lee and why? Now, this is just the techie bit. Behavioural science, about 10 years ago, published the COM-B model. And I know this is where I lose everyone, but promise you, this makes your life really easy. The COMB model is an evidence-based behavioural science model that is globally recognised as the model to use when developing behaviour change programmes. It underpins most of the public health work. So I supported PHE during 2020 COVID. This is what underpinned most of the work. It's used by local governments across the world, local authorities up and down the country, pushes most public health out. And it's just a brilliant tool because it's condensed all the science basically into a great formula. So we'll go through that, why that's so good now. So means, motive and opportunity, we all know it comes so naturally to us. And it's just like that with the behavioural science. Your audience must be capable of doing what you're asking them to do. So physically or psychologically. So it's obvious. Motive, obviously. You've got to be motivated. My goodness, if we all did what we said we would do, well, my life would be so different. I can't even show you behind that door back there. An opportunity. Everyone must also have the opportunity. So whether that's physical and social. So it's really important that people actually have the ability to do what you're asking them to do. And especially when you work in public health with vulnerable people, but even actually anyone, there's absolutely no point in doing loads and loads of work, publishing, content, getting creative, if actually the people that you're talking to aren't able to do what you're asking them of. So COMB works literally like a bike lock. You need the capability, the opportunity and the motivation in sync, all three, to enact change. So that's simple. But big question, how do you know your audience and how do you know what they've got? So again, knowing your audience is absolutely key. So let's see, we'll discover how to do that murder mystery style. 2 steps, again, same as a great detective. You have data. There's no way in the world of data. You've probably got too much data about your audience. But try and find out. Oh, God, sorry, hold on. Just a second. Sorry, hilariously, I nearly went out on battery. So, of course, what do we know? And then we go out. So we do our secondary or desk research first. Always used to make me laugh. Thank you. Thank you. And then we go out and do our engagement, don't we? You never go out and do primary engagement first, which is so weird in market research world, but it's true. I know. And proof that, yes, I forgot to plug it in. And I haven't had my gin yet. So means. So again, this is the capability. So just diving a bit deeper. If you're a good detective, you go door to door, you look at CCTV, you gather all the intel before speaking to people. You're trying to understand, are they psychologically and physically able? So really important, especially if you're wanting to be inclusive and look at your learning disabilities, etc. And especially if I work on a lot of active activity-based exercise programs and things. So, are people actually able to go and do what you're asking them to do? Next one, opportunity. It's so obvious, but it does get missed. Do people actually have the opportunity? It's essentially where I worked a lot on, trying to get people out to leisure centres, getting them active, getting them moving. And when we do our segmentation, be like, stop telling, young mums and middle-aged mums with children at home to go out in the evening if they didn't have childcare, things like that. Do people actually have the opportunity? When I know we were doing the 5-a-day work, food deserts are massive. You can't just assume that everyone's got the opportunity of a really nice Lidl's around the corner, or they might. I live in Devon, so I'm so happy this is online so I can come. But actually, transport's a nightmare. Rural living is really hard. Can people actually do they have the opportunity? So once you start segmenting and breaking down, it becomes really simple. And then, okay, motivation. And this is what was picked up earlier. We have behavioral sciences based on systems thinking. So we have two systems. We have system 1, which I'd like to call our Homer brain. And that's based on Dan Ariely's concept. So it's the love, passion, despair, jealousy, money. Oh, also the surprise. When we're talking about connecting into emotions, how do we connect with our audience emotions? That's the system 1 brain that was being talked about. System 2 is the premeditated and planned. And a nice way to remember this is Spock. So you've got your Homer and your Spock. Comms, you do not want to be speaking to your Spock because we are, as humans, inherently lazy. So that's another core concept that behavioral science is based on. We're lazy and we really will take the easy route whenever we can. So we don't like having to think too hard. The jokes when you have to think a bit too hard and they're just not funny. I mean, sometimes you do start laughing about 10 minutes later, but we don't really like to enact that premeditated and planned brain of ours. So understanding the motive when finding out who's killed poor old Lee is completely, key. It is the game changer. As anyone who reads a good novel knows and watches any of the crime TV, you all know the why is it. Okay, that's the story, that's the narrative. And as we've heard loads of times, that's the why. And this is one way to find out the why. So far, our case notes from the crime scene. There was a Dunkin' Donuts in Mr. Hurd's hand, but it was not eaten. Colonel Mustard walks with a cane and is visibly cross. Miss Scarlet is very eerily calm. Mrs. White is eerily calm, and Miss Scarlet is very upset. And no other delegates have arrived. And we do all know how popular commsHERO is. Okay, so we move on to the interviews. Before we go on. So a bit like the decisions you make when you're deciding how to engage with your audience, a detective will decide, well, am I going to interview them as a group? That makes for some good TV, or alone. Or is it leading? Am I going to lead the questions, or am I just going to lock them in that cell and observe what they do for 2 hours? I know that people lie, but I know what I'm trying to do is corroborate the evidence. So I know the kind of questions, because I've looked at my data, that I want to ask them. And just a little bit of a flag here that because we know people lie, UX design, of course, is just huge now. Actually, breaking down our questions when you engage with people, asking people to recount step by step, where were you when? That kind of style will really help break down memories and help recall and push beyond and get you much deeper answers. So that chunking down. And of course, actually watching people do what you want them to do is, of course, the best. Trying to understand where the friction is. Where's the moments where you'll lose people, or actually is the friction bringing people in? And for poor old Lee, who's still lying there on the library floor, how easy was this murder to commit? And how easy is what you're asking your audience to do? And I do say that with a public health hat on, because we spend many years asking people to do ridiculous things like cut down on alcohol. We still are, but it's really hard and tough. No one wants to do it. Okay, so I need 3 volunteers to come up to the stage, if that's possible, please. 1 to be Miss Scarlet, 1 to be Colonel Mustard, and 1 to be Mrs. White. Any volunteers there? Because you really don't want to hear my voice the whole time. Yay, Kate!
Oh, it'd help if I put my camera on, wouldn't it? Hello.
Okay. I need 2 more. Oh, Kate's all 3. Bit of role play. Any other guys want to come up on stage? I should have said there's chocolate brownies for anyone. See the rush. Right, we'll move on just because of time. So Kate, if you'd be so kind as just to read through the interview note. Oh, great. Who's that? Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew, we'll have you as Colonel Mustard. So all it is literally reading the script. So dead simple. So Kate, for all the detectives who are trying to work out who killed poor old Lee, please share the case notes from your interview.
Please excuse me, I'm so upset. Truly I am. He was such a lovely man, a real mentor to me. He was helping me, you see. He was helping me develop my social media skills so I could apply for the manager permission. He was a visionary, truly. What do you mean? Where was I? We had arranged to meet for a coffee and donut before the event started, but I never saw him. It would have been a gin and tonic and a beer and probably a burger, but oh well. I came in and went straight to the ladies' room to freshen up for the day. I knew him before he got his job at Real Resource, and then when I got one too, I just couldn't believe my luck.
Thank you, Kate. So I hope you all took notes. Let's hear from Colonel Mustard. Andrew, over to you.
This is a bad day indeed. More bad press for the manor, and we have only just opened up again since lockdown. Me? What do you mean? Where was I at 8:30 this morning? What is this morning? What is the meaning of this? How can I be a suspect? Once again, he has caused me trouble. Nothing but bother, dead or alive. What do you mean trouble before? I had asked him to do some social for me in his spare time to promote the manor. After all he's on there, and all the time it can't. Sorry,
it's the grammar. Sorry, comms guys. I know you're all cringing.
I need bigger text. Where did I get to? After all he's on there and all the time, it can't be hard, can it? But he said he was too busy and didn't work for free. What a bother. I can't work the blasted thing. Of course I was here. As a host, I'm available when people arrive. I saw him before he saw me. I didn't greet him. I sat down. Ever since my fall, I walk with this blasted cane. That silly girl followed him in waving some paper. Rude she was, didn't see me.
Thank you, Andrew. So, Kate, are you up for another one? You want to be Mrs. White?
Yeah, go on then. I'm a practical person, so I'm not falling all over about all over the place. Who says what the right reaction is to finding a dead body? No, I didn't tweet about it. Of course not. I am a commsHERO extraordinaire, but I would never take advantage of anyone. I have a strict code of ethics, unlike some. I mean, that silly girl, she probably did tweet or something. She didn't think I saw her, but I did, running out with a donut. Yes, I did still make my cup of tea before calling the police. I could see he did not need an ambulance. And yes, I had come straight to my training day from the gym, where unfortunately Miss Scarlett now goes too. Super strong she is. Surprising, really. I'm not. Let me think. I think I saw him and Miss Scarlett arguing, so I nipped to the loo before getting a drink. Nice hand lotion in there. Yes, Colonel Mustard did greet me. Always does, even after his fall. He needs to sit down now.
Yay, thank you so much. Brilliant. So we're going to move on now, following those interviews, to try and establish who had the means, motive and opportunity. So based on this tiny bit of information, can anyone work out who killed Lee? Is it Miss Scarlett, Mrs. White, or Colonel Mustard? Mrs. White. Oh, poor old Mrs. White. So, it wasn't Mrs. White. It wasn't Colonel Mustard. It was Miss Scarlett. It wasn't. Because Miss Scarlett, here we'll move on. When we think about having the means, the motive and the opportunity, we didn't actually uncover much of a motive for anyone. Yes. And that is the story. So we found that they all had the opportunity, they all had the means, apart from Colonel Mustard, who had to sit down. But the motive, we needed to understand a bit more about the motive. So if you were to continue questioning, you'd be asking, what is the why? So it could have been that the donut wasn't a Krispy Kreme. As I understand, they're the favourites. Was it a crime of passion? Is she after his job? And you can see, once you've got the why, once you've just gone down into the questioning that far, you've got a completely different story and completely different narrative. Oh, so the takeaways really is that CommB is a tool to help you understand your audience. When you're planning any engagement, actually think about the questions. I've got loads of there are actually recommendations around the questions, but that'd be here forever. But actually use capability, opportunity, motivation literally to phrase them. If from your first lot of data, for example, as a detective, you could see pretty quickly that Colonel Mustard did not have the capability because he wouldn't have had the strength, then that's fine, move on, and then focus in, oh, but maybe did he have a motive? You know, try and dig deeper. So it's the same with your audience. If you see that they're really strong in capability and motivation, but they haven't got the opportunities, focus down opportunity. Or if you see that this is with our weight management services, healthy lifestyles, people have the capability and opportunity, zero motivation. And also just zone in wherever the gaps are. Use the framework to map your insight, map your data, and then use it to develop your next primary set of questions. So it will help you identify the behaviour you need. The one biggest mistake is constant across all subjects is that in order to evaluate, you need to have identified a measurable behaviour change. And I cannot tell you how many behaviour change marketing campaigns start and end with no clear behaviour, because it's the hardest thing. People don't always agree, and it's all has to be done up front. But we've heard throughout, you know, these last few days, it always comes back to evaluation, evaluation, evaluation. And there was one session talking about, you know, even winning awards, you've got to be able to evaluate, show impact. And in public sector, if you didn't show your evaluation, you know, you basically didn't get the money. So you always have to have a very clear, measurable behaviour change. That is not your policy. That is not your agenda. That's not the corporate agenda. The behaviour change comes out of the CommB analysis. So the answer is always in the insight when you get there. And it doesn't give you all of your answers, but what it does, it gives you a really good structure. And we hear a lot about identifying people's barriers. Understand your audience, identify their barriers. Identify these 3 types of barrier and you're on the right road. And it just really help you move forward. And I've said the last one, and when you're in boot camp, I say that about 1,000 times because it's actually the hardest thing to do, but it is the most important thing to do. And then final slide here. Final tip is always, of course, start with the end in mind. So when you've done your CommB analysis and you're moving on to planning your marketing, you have that clear behaviour change in your head. You know what people want, what you want people to do, and you can talk backwards. So you have to be so clear in your head that as good detectives, you can become great detectives and tell an audience in your room exactly, step by step, motive, opportunity and capability, why someone did or will do what it is that you're hoping that they will do, and just how easy and simple it is. And when you've got that, the rest is a breeze. So I'll pause there, take questions.
Hello, Ruth.
Hello, you're alive.
He rises from the grave. That was a really good session. I enjoyed it the way that you mixed it up and made it a bit different with the murder mystery side of things. Really engaging in terms of the content that you've got there. If there are any questions for Ruth, can you just put them in the Q&A tab for me at the right hand side, and I'll be able to bring these up and ask Ruth. So Ruth, how does it work normally? Obviously, this is in a virtual setting. Is this something that you've come up with recently in terms of the structure of this and how you work it in a group setting, or is it something you would usually do in person to make it more interactive?
The murder mystery style, or no, online, definitely. I've been delivering CommB training for years, in person and online, and I just see the room and everyone's eyes go at the point where I bring up the slide, and you just lose everyone. But it's just so simple when you start using it. And it was just binge watching, to be honest. I think probably a lot to do with COVID, but it was the means, motive, and opportunity. I was like, oh my God, it's just the same. And as comms, we don't need to have, PhDs in behavioural science to be able to use the science. Behavioural scientists spend all day, every day publishing papers. They want people to use this. But what we really need to know is which is the good science that we can put our money behind and say, actually, this is the good science. And we know if we use it, then it's really good and we're most likely to work. Or actually, this is a bit of pop psychology. And there's, there's can be quite a lot of scandal in the science world, about whether things can get proven or disproven. And that's where really when I left in-house, that's what I just wanted to focus on. Because when I was in-house, there was just no way you could keep up. So when they published CommB, it was like, wow, that's just so simple.
Yeah, and I like the point you made at the end, just on the very last slide, about start at the end and work backwards, just like you would do, obviously, in that murder mystery situation, you get there when it's the end and then you have to work backwards. So I liked how that kind of all tied in together in terms of, how you should work on this theory is starting at the end, what you want to see, what the final outcome is, and then work backwards from that in terms of what have you got, what do you need to focus in on to make that overarching, the overarching system work.
Because do you remember as kids, you'd have those big grids and there'd be a start and end and loads of dead ends and things, and you'd be going round and down until one day you triggered, oh my God, just start at the end and work my way back up. Marketing's exactly the same. If you don't have a real clear, measurable behavioural outcome, like agreed, and that's the hard bit, getting all the stakeholders to agree, that really is the toughest bit. The marketing bit's the easy bit. It's, everyone around the table agreeing. And just if you know that, then you're free, basically, which is why in behaviour change marketing, we try and do all of that up front. So there's no surprises down the road. There's no dead ends, and everyone can come behind you in the work you're doing.
Yeah, no, great. We got a question through from Colonel Mustard, who has apparently said he can actually read. Do you have any reading recommendations around this?
This is my favourite subject. I don't know if you've seen, we've got currently on LinkedIn, we've got a huge conversation about this. Because everyone is trying to pick a top 10 of behavioural science books to read as comms guys to get underneath this. And we literally are up to about list 30 now. And we were trying to figure out a way to actually rate the top 10. So the famous book recommendations, Nudge was published, must be about 12, 13 years ago now. That's what kickstarted a lot of it off outside behavioural science academia, and that's Thaler and Sunstein. But also Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational. He coined the Homer and Spock phrase, which really stuck with me, and he takes the famous books like Thinking Fast and Slow in and uses them and designs experiments around them, and he's just a really nice, easy read. The one I love, just looking at the bookshelf, the godfather of behavioral science is Daniel Kahneman, but his books are like this. So I do them on Audible because I'm not a behavioural scientist. I don't have to write essays on it.
That is off-putting to say the least.
Yeah, I just looking on and there's one called The Choice Factory, which is brilliant, easy chapter reads for comms people. And also we are in the process in book behaviour change marketing boot camp. Sorry, can't speak anymore. We have in draft, but we have what's called the Busy Communicator's Guide to Behavioural Science. So that's going to be even more diluted with doodles and visuals and pictures. But yeah, do check out the LinkedIn list, and we're going to be doing a top 10 somehow. So if anyone does have any favourites that they want to recommend, it does feel like it's exploded. The most popular one, kind of that's non-science based consumer, is Atomic Habits, James Clear. That is life-changing. And we were hearing a lot earlier about people not keeping their boundaries up and how hard it is to constantly keep your boundaries up and manage all the situations. And a lot of it, we are the sum of all of our habits. So it's quite scary that we're so unaware of how many habits we have and what we're doing. And he actually takes all of the science and just does it brilliantly. And people, you see it on Twitter and everywhere. That book is life-changing. And it also is correct in the science, the habits, or, you know, how you amend habits. And when we do our deep dives that you kindly mentioned at the beginning, Lee, we often break days up by habits. So, and it makes great content for after the deep dives, but we ask people to talk about their days and their habits rather than the subject we're asking about. Because it's that same old, how much did you drink last week question, and everyone suddenly goes blank.
Yeah, not that much. No, great. Thank you for that. Lots of reading material there. If you have missed any of them, Kate has posted them in the chat. You can obviously go back and watch this on catch up as well if you want to rewatch the session and just get a bit more detail on it. So thank you so much for that, Ruth. We are just coming up now to the end of the session. So just bring up a comment here that Sophia had mentioned. So she had a degree in criminology, then went into comms. She thought her degree was wasted, but what you, Ruth, have just been saying makes sense, as she does use what she learned about motives in her marketing.
Brilliant. Oh, hello. Oh my God, I'm in awe. We have to talk. That sounds amazing background.
And then we got one more comment here just from Alice. She had a lot about the Atomic Habits. It's definitely a sign to get it on my reading list. So Alice, if you didn't see it, Kate has posted our shirt back on the stage then. A link here to the LinkedIn conversation and that Ruth was mentioning earlier. So, thank you again, Ruth, for that session. It was a different twist on, behavioral science. Like you said, it makes it a lot more engaging and a lot more relatable for people in terms of, digging straight into that theoretical side of things. And sometimes it can be a bit daunting when you're looking at something like, behavioral psychology and change, etc. So thank you so much for that. Just before we close up for the day, again, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already ordered your swag t-shirt, please do order it using the link that is in your email that had your link on to join the website today, the event. And if you don't order this by next Friday, then you won't receive one in your swag pack post-event, I'm afraid. So please do get that booked in so you don't so that you avoid any disappointment from there. We still have our competitions, so keep posting your pictures on social, #commsHERO, and we'll be releasing the next batch of winners first thing tomorrow morning with Anik Simpson when she kicks off the day. So finally, I'm sure you're not all unaware that we have our commsHERO after party this evening. It starts in just over 1 hour's time, so at 8 p.m. We have Arthur Smith, the comedian. We have Siler, the magician, who's going to be joining us. And then we have Graham Park, who's going to be doing a DJ set for us. So really looking forward to that. Hope we can see you all there and you all join us. Like I said, we're back here tomorrow morning with Anik, and we kick off at 9:15 with Gemma Butler looking at marketing's role in driving a sustainable future. Thanks so much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Bye.